What if you treated a relationship like this? It's like,
oh my God.
imagine
Every Saturday? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Truth Talks, the podcast that brings you real strategies for sustainable fitness transformation. Today, we have to dive into this topic, and I'm going to include a little bit of a disclosure in advance. I'm going to get heated. Ooh, I know.
More heated than when you drive and there's bad driving.
This topic might actually just bother me more than my road rage.
Man, that's a big topic then.
This is how you know it's big. I feel very, very passionately about this topic. You probably already saw it in the title, but I was going to ask listeners, can you guess what it is? But I mean, the title kind of gives it away. Paris, I'm sure you can guess what it is, though. What is today's topic?
Today's topic is pretty much the problem with cheat days and why you shouldn't. Pretty much we're going to give all the arguments for why you should not have a cheat days and then give the arguments why you should. And spoiler alert, there's pretty much zero argument for why you
There's
should.
essentially no reasons why we should be indulging in cheat days. So yeah, you and I often go back and forth with this idea of like most of the questions we talk about on this podcast are like, it depends, or here's the nuance and here's the context and all of that. And like, even when we have firm answers, I think we've got a few that have like no or yes, but there's usually a however in these cases.
Yes.
You know, this one I'm just going to say is probably, I'd say one of the only episodes so far where I'm going to make some blanket, no, do not do this statements. Yeah.
Like absolutes. We can talk in absolutes.
We are going to talk a little bit in absolutes. So for all those listening in advance, I hope you enjoy the passion that comes from this episode because we're about to dive right in. Now, before we can talk about what is the problem with cheat days, and I'm going to say what are the problems with cheat days because it's multiple. Everybody sitting here is probably going, well, cheat days are just part of the fitness industry. They're everywhere. So I do want to explore like, why do we think of them as this inherent cornerstone of fit life and like fitness lifestyle and just how have cheat days become just so mainstream? Like, why is that a thing?
Honestly, I have no idea. I think there was like some old school bodybuilders and like fitness influencers who would like advertise their cheat days. So they would post like a picture of them like shredded eating like 3 burgers and some fries or something. People were like, well, they're doing it. Should I do it too? And then they're like, oh wow, that sounds great. Like the whole day where I don't have to eat what I should be eating and just eat whatever I want and not even think about it. Well, that sounds like you sold me on that idea. I think they're a good idea too, you know? So
yeah, obviously it's appealing. Like who doesn't want a day of, well, maybe there's a few people who don't, but most people would be like, if you told me I could just eat as much pizza and junk food as I wanted all day today, 99% of people would probably say yes to that. There is an appeal. But I think when you talk about the old school bodybuilders doing it, many of them are also like on steroids. And
not that it really even matters to the conversation, but you're right.
It doesn't.
You get away with a lot because it's when you're on a ton of drugs.
Yeah, and like the intake of that insane level of calories, just it is different when you're enhanced. I'm parking that because that's not what today's discussion is about at all. But I do think it's important to be like, okay, it is different for them. It is different for them. And actually, a lot of the mindset stuff is still just as problematic, regardless. But I think it has been this idea of like, it's just straight up appealing. It's appealing. And also like this following in the footsteps of the old school methods where that was part of, enhanced or not, that was just part of kind of the bodybuilding lifestyle. And there's a legacy component to that. I think the other thing though, that I've noticed that is more in like today's version of the fitness industry where we have social media and stuff too, is I've seen people kind of use cheat days as a way to reaffirm their identities as a fitness person.
Interesting take.
Yeah. And so, even off social media, like in conversations that I've had with people who really identify first and foremost as like, hey, I'm bodybuilders or hey, I'm a fitness enthusiast. They see cheat days as one of the ways that they can reinforce that identity because the label is so tied to the fitness culture. So if they say, oh yeah, I had my cheat day yesterday, it almost is put out there and is talked about because it's a way of saying, I live by this lifestyle and I live by this culture.
Interesting.
There's a number of reasons why I don't agree with that, but it is a thing. And you kind of wear it like a badge of honor and as a sign of your commitment to being a fitness person.
Yeah. And that's a whole other discussion of like identity shifts and why you should never just, the only thing you have going for yourself, no offense, is like just your physique, like, and your identity as a fitness person. But that's a whole different discussion. But that's interesting. It's something that I didn't initially think about when it came to cheat days. But it is true. It is totally true.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so I think we're trying our best here to carve out a space in the fitness culture that allows you to, enjoy being a fitness enthusiast and enjoy a fitness-based lifestyle. As I say in the intro, this is, sustainable fitness lifestyle is like our ultimate goal, or sustainable fitness transformation even too, right? Like whether it's a maintaining a lifestyle or transforming and creating a new lifestyle, that's our space. We want to own that space, but we also want to do it in the way that really reinforces that sustainable part. And so today, when we talk about the reason why cheat days don't belong in our version of a fitness lifestyle, we hope you agree with a lot of our rationale. And we also hope it helps demonstrate that living a fitness lifestyle doesn't mean you need a cheat day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So in addition to the reasons why cheat days have become part of the fitness industry, why do people use them? Like, why are they still being used? It's not just a badge of honor. Like, it actually, some people genuinely believe it serves a purpose.
People will justify it in many ways. Some people will say, "Oh, it's going to help my metabolism," which is false. There's no there's no one large calorie input that's going to all of a sudden change your metabolic rate, and now all of a sudden you're going to burn more fat on the other side of it. So that's like
just scientifically wrong. It doesn't work like that.
That's the main reason why people can justify it. Or like it has some sort of physiological benefit, and or like
can I just want to unpack that. So what you're saying is people think, I told you I was going to get heated, that people think that if they have this massive intake of like super high calorie days that it like revs up their metabolism.
Yeah.
But your body doesn't utilize energy it doesn't need. So it just like the principal laws of like calorie intake is like if you're not using it, you're storing it, right?
Yes.
And you cannot change your body's natural energy demands due to one meal or one day of eating or one day a week of eating.
Nor is there any hormonal shifts from one acute bolus of massive amount of calories. Like that's just not right. Like things don't happen in that tiny course. That's like me saying if I overflowed my gas tank on my car and put a bunch of gas on top of the car, that I could then drive my car for longer and faster than if I just filled up the gas tank.
Great analogy. Great analogy. Yeah. No, your tank is only so big.
Yeah. So, and then I just got a mess, and my car is full of gasoline, and I made a mess on the ground.
And it's probably going to explode.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the claimed use case around ramping up your metabolism, yes, like that is not a valid reason to engage in cheat days. Any other reasons why people do use cheat days, though?
You could justify it as like a perceived adherence tool. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, I get to look forward to this cheat day, so it helps me stay on track during the week. Like that kind of mindset. And we're going to bust all these. But anyways, that's like another thing I hear is like, oh yeah, but I have this to look forward to, so it helps keep me on track.
Yeah, it's this like anticipatory tool of like, if I have this, then I can do these other things for the rest of the time in between. And I think part of that is it becomes this like exclusive way of eating foods you actually like. And so there's like this dopamine hit attached to it. And just that like that anticipation of, okay, this is working. I'm getting towards that. Cool. But again, we're going to go into a lot of reasons why that's also problematic. But I think that probably is the main reason that people do use cheat days. Is it claimed? What did you call it?
I said a perceived adherence.
Perceived adherence tool. Okay. So we're going to spend the rest of this episode talking about the problems, but hopefully those are some of the reasons you might have heard of like, why are people doing this to begin with? If there are so many problems, like we can't ignore the fact that people perceive certain benefits. However, I think this is a very clear case in which the hazards outweigh any perceived benefits. One, because the first benefit we talked about is actually just scientifically false.
Yeah.
And second, because adherence has a number of way more productive, sustainable methods of being achieved. And we're going to unpack all those.
And I'm going to throw in I think I have some personal anecdote that just came into my mind that I'm going to add in our later points as well. So people can see like a real world example of when I was younger playing with this concept of cheat days. So that's something that just popped into my head. So we're going to talk about that later. Yeah.
I can't wait till we hear that. That's going to be a good one. All this stuff benefits from personal experience. We've all tried this. Like, I know we're sitting here knocking it right now because we've outgrown that stage where we've believed in cheat days. But I think you're so right to acknowledge that at some point we did engage with very similar behaviors. So we're not trying to sit here being like you're all wrong. It's just saying
You don't
like
know what you don't know.
you don't know what you don't know, and also like sometimes you learn a lot from experience, and that's what it takes. So we're just
Let
here
us
to
make
share.
the mistakes, so then we made the mistakes so that you don't have to.
There you go. There you go.
So
All right. Okay. I think the main thing with cheat days. Oh my god, I can't even say there's a main thing because there's just so many things. One thing I definitely want to highlight, and it's related to that perceived benefit of, hey, I get this to look forward to. You're essentially creating a situation where you are looking for escape from your routine. Let's break it down this way. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of math here. Pull out my trusty calculator. Let's say we eat 21 meals a week. And, that's average.
yeah, for the sake of
Yes, just for the sake. And let's say we're talking about a cheat meal and not even a whole cheat day. We go 1 divided by 21. That's less than 5% of the meals in our week.
Mhm.
If I had to pick, would you rather make 95% of your meals count and feel great, or worry about the 5%? Logically, which one would you say?
Yeah, it's probably even less due to the fact that some people have like 4 or 5 meals a day.
And snacks and all that,
Yeah.
right? So I'm generalizing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are now giving so much weight to this one instance that we're forgetting about the other 95 plus percent.
Yeah. It
And
glorifies
it's glorifying the minority impact. If we are creating situations where we have to escape our routines, not only are we living for these small moments and neglecting to take care of ourselves the rest of the time, we're also essentially not enabling any skills development.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I talk a lot about barriers to consistency. What is a bigger barrier to consistency than ignoring the 95%?
It's interesting, right? It robs you of also being present during the rest of your life because the whole week you're going to bed, you're like, I can't wait till I have this meal or something like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, hold on, you're supposed to be talking to your partner before bed about what you guys were going to do this weekend, but instead you're like in your own head about this ice cream and pizza you're going to have on Friday. You know what I mean? It's just like it's robbing you of being present in the moment, and it's also you're putting this one moment or moments on a pedestal, and then because of that you're also putting everything else on the bottom level, meaning
Right.
like you're making it seem like everything else sucks except for this one glorified moment or moments. But as you said, what's the larger percentage of your life? So do you want to be like perceived suffering for the whole week and then have one perceived awesome time, or like find a balance?
Mm-hmm. And I just got to say, like, when you glorify that 5% or whatever it is we're calling it, that cheat meal, how fulfilling is it?
Yeah.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, I keep cutting off. But
No, I
because,
paused for dramatic effect.
okay, I think it's because if you're eating it, you're already thinking that it's going to be over soon, and then as soon as you finish it, you're depressed because you have to wait like another week until this thing.
So when you talked about being present, to me, that is such an impactful point to make, of like you're neglecting your ability to be present for not just eating occasions, but all of other life's moments, because you're so focused on that one cheat day or cheat meal and getting there. But also because even when you have that moment, how much do you savor it? And how much are you worried about it being over and then looking forward to the next one, right? Ultimately, I think huge problem with cheat days is they are a distraction from life. They really are. They're a distraction from life.
Yeah.
And not really a productive one.
No.
So let's dive into more specific problems. Okay, and I've got them listed here because we gave it a lot of thought, as we always do. The first one that I cannot stress enough: cheat days are really just glorified binge and restrict cycles.
Yeah.
They are glorified binge and restrict cycles. And the binge and restrict pattern is so deeply psychologically damaging. And we are not eating disorder specialists. Of course, we always look to practice healthy relationship with food. But cheat days are one of the primary ways to get in the way of a healthy relationship with food, because it is encouraging binge and restrict behaviors. You're trying to make the most of these moments in time where you're getting in as much as you can for the sake of being restricted the rest of the week. And the sake of the restriction the rest of the week is to quote unquote earn this huge meal at the end of it. Nothing says binge and restrict more than a cheat day or cheat meal.
No, and then you're also trying to like because you take the handcuffs off, you're like, okay, I need to get in as much as possible because this is the window where I can do it, which
Mm-hmm.
is pretty dangerous. And this is when I'll talk about my own anecdote. So one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about coaching is because I've had poor guidance in the past. And when I ran my first like coached fat loss phase when I was younger, one of the things that I was prescribed was, okay, I was on way too little food for what I needed, and way poor training program. But that's a whole different story. It was on Fridays you can go to all you can eat sushi and eat whatever you want that day, right? Pretty much for the whole afternoon, right? So I would be pretty much glorifying that all week. Then I would go, and then you eat so much that your tummy hurts, and it's all
Mm-hmm.
these food that you don't regularly eat. And then I remember one time I had eaten so much that the next day I didn't eat anything until dinner the following day, because also I was feeling guilty that I had overeaten, but also I was so full and like my digestion was like really like
No.
messed up that I don't think I ate until like 7 p.m. that day, just because it was just like a mess. And then you get in your head and you're like, okay, well, you're trying to like compensate. So just really not a great mindset to be in.
And the downside of that is like you also then don't learn how to go to all you can eat sushi and
Yeah.
eat productively and enjoy it. There's this like psychological concept that has to do with we remember things based on the ending of something,
Hmm.
right? So you are now walking away from an experience like that, remembering how ill and guilty you felt. You're
Mm-hmm.
not remembering those first few bites. You're remembering the end. And that is a psychological principle. Let's say that number one reason people, want to engage in a cheat day is to eat foods they love and have that enjoyable moment. You've now just neglected that potential benefit
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're left feeling sick and there's a guilt factor, which we'll talk about again in a minute. The positives become outweighed by an ultimately negative experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sorry you had to go through that.
It's all good learning. I always say anything I've been through in life has been so I can help other people do it different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I look at all these things as like, I'm happy. We don't have to be sorry about it. I'm happy that we went through this because it
Yeah,
might
for sure.
save other people from not having to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, people, binge and restrict cycles, not a healthy thing to do. Not worth the binge.
Yeah.
Not worth it. Okay. So, binge and restrict cycle is essentially the opposite of a sustainable diet.
Mm-hmm.
And having a sustainable diet is a topic we covered in a previous episode, dropping the links below for anyone who wants to tune into that if you haven't already. But if you are choosing to pursue this path of cheat days, which, as we just outlined, turns into a binge and restrict cycle, you actually aren't giving yourself any opportunity to develop sustainable diet techniques and diet,
Mm-hmm.
not just in terms of like fat loss or whatever, but just the foods you eat, consistency, sustainability, adherence, all those benefits. It's kind of just like an excuse not to learn them, not to learn those techniques and those skills.
Yeah. Yeah, because you like all those foods that you're glorifying, like you could, and we talked about this in previous podcasts, as Corny said, but you could have them sprinkled into your everyday and know the skills and mindsets around budgeting them into your everyday, and therefore you don't need to glorify them because they're not on a pedestal.
Knowing how to eat consistently is actually a skill. And I'm not gonna lie, it takes time, it takes a lot of effort, it takes mental energy, it takes experimentation to learn how to eat consistently. But it is one of the most rewarding things you can do when it comes to your fitness journey. Is like, I know how to eat for me, one day to the next. And I think if you are caught in this trap of I'm living for a cheat day, you I'm just going to be blunt. You don't know how to eat consistently. You do not know how to eat for yourself. And if you're going to sit there and be like, well, you know what? I know how to eat the rest of the time. I'm going to say to you that rest of the time doesn't matter that much because you're using your cheat days as a crutch.
Yeah, this is interesting. I just thought of it. It's kind of like people who have almost the weekend alcoholism, where
Mm,
they hate their job and they hate their life during the week, and they completely glorify like they're living for the weekend, and then they just go way out on drugs, alcohol, whatever on the weekend, and then by the time Sunday comes around, it's like, oh, I hate Mondays. Monday, Friday suck so much, and all the thing about all week is completely just going crazy on the weekends. So it's kind of like a similar mindset. It's like, do you want to live your whole life like hating the larger percentage of your week and then perceivingly having some sort of benefit that's not really a net benefit at the end of the week?
yeah. And so, like, what would it look like if you were actually confident in your nutrition 7 days a week?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't think you can be confident if you're using a cheat day protocol or cheat meal protocol, even. I don't think you can be confident in that moment or the rest of the time either. Which actually brings me to my next problem,
Yes.
which is the all or nothing mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're either all in on the cheat day, or you're all in on your restrictive tendencies, or you're not doing anything at all.
Yeah. I just want to say, like, this is such a like recurring mindset of people in their fitness journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like anything in life, most of the time the answer lies in the middle. And this is just another example of that. And I think just learning the middle ground comes with maturity in your fitness journey. But as you said, and I use this analogy all the time, is like the dimmer switch analogy, right? I've said in different podcasts before, it's not on or off with their fitness journey. It's a dimmer switch that we adjust over time based on context.
Lifestyle, responsibilities, goals,
Yeah.
personal
Priorities.
experience, all of those things get adjusted, right? Yeah. And I think if you don't know how to find that middle ground, you're either going to be like, okay, the cheat days, that's giving it my all, or the restriction, that's my all. But what does a world look like in which you have no cheat days? Just saying, if you say, okay, if you take away my cheat days, well, then I don't have anything else the rest of the week to do, or I don't know how to stay balanced the rest of the week. You're creating this nothing gap. So you're hanging on to cheat days to give you the all, but you're creating a huge nothing gap so that your fallback plan or your alternative is the nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so in both cases, you're not really working productively towards your goals. You're not building consistent strategies. You're not engaging in a sustainable diet.
Really important stuff.
Very. Okay. I do have one more because we just said we're not being productive. Actually, I have two more, but this one is more closely tied to what we were saying. This idea of being all or nothing and how that's not that productive towards your goals. I know that this one is a little bit more, let's say, outcome oriented, but I think a lot of people use cheat days because they think that they're working towards their fitness goals. But in a lot of cases, cheat days can actually move you further back from your goals. Can you talk about that one?
Yeah. So as I said before, there's no physiological benefit that's going to ramp up our metabolism or fat burning, right? In fact, it's the opposite. Let's say we were at like a 500 calorie deficit from Monday to Friday or whatever. Okay. So we're on our way to making good fat loss progress. And then we have this massive day of eating of like 7,000 calories or something crazy, because 7,000 calories is pretty easy to get if you're going all out. Let's just get real, especially for a whole day.
Mm-hmm.
You've erased, because I talked in a previous podcast, I think, of we can look at things on like a net calorie balance over the week and what's our calorie average. Well, if we have a massive bolus of 7,000 calories, that just shot our weekly average up, and it potentially erased, if not added on top of, not only erased the deficit potentially from the work we've done during the week, but also could have put us in a surplus, depending on how crazy you go. So now we're at this point where we've erased the progress that we worked so hard for, and we are now in this spinning our wheels situation where we're making progress during the week, erasing it all on the weekend or something like that. And we just feel bad about it, and then we try to restrict further the next time, which feeds back into, it's just like you're taking one step forward, two steps back, potentially.
That binge and restrict cycle is not only problematic in itself, but if you are trying to move towards a goal, it is actually keeping you spinning in that cycle instead of moving forward. I hate to say it, but then like even if you think you're working hard with your restriction and you're thinking, okay, I'm working, erasing that work is so demoralizing. Yeah. And then all of a sudden now you're left 3 weeks later being like, well, how come I've spent 15 of the last, more than that, 18 days in the last 3 weeks working so hard towards my goals? How come I can't make progress? Well, those other 3 days where each week you've had a weekly cheat day, it's erased that productivity.
Which sucks. And also, not only in a fat loss phase, but if you're in a building phase and you're having a cheat day, like, okay, that's a whole that story. But then you're just putting on way unnecessary fat gain. Mm-hmm. Because remember, we can only use so many extra calories to build muscle. And any amount of calories above that is just additional body fat that we're going to store. So if I have this day where I'm having such a large surplus, every week I'm just going to increase my rate of gain in terms of body weight way higher than it needs to be. And I'm just going to put on way unnecessary fat gain that eventually I'm going to have to then hop into a fat loss phase earlier than I thought, or the next fat loss phase is going to have to longer than I thought to get to the leanness I want to get to.
So regardless of whether you have a fat loss goal or a muscle building goal, cheat days become a huge barrier to productive progress. Mm-hmm. One more problem I do want to definitely, I actually saved this one for last intentionally, but it has to do with the name itself. Mm-hmm. can we just take a moment and be like, what the insert bleep here are we actually cheating on? Why are we labeling things as cheat days or cheat meals or using the word cheat, period? What are we cheating on?
And it's associated with guilt in itself, that the word cheat, right?
Yeah.
So how are we not going to feel guilty? But I want to do another analogy, okay?
Go for
Okay,
it.
let's say, because you're essentially giving yourself a freebie. It's like, okay, we're working so hard, but okay, go eat
Free
all the
for
food.
all.
It's a free for all. What if you treated a relationship like this? It's like,
Oh my God.
imagine this.
Every Saturday?
It's like if I treat my partner great during the week and I'm so respectful to them and faithful to them, and then on the weekend I'm going to fool around with a bunch of other people and I'm cheating on my partner. But I gave myself a perceived freebie. It's like, it doesn't work like that. We don't get to just choose where the calories don't count today, or cheating on my partner doesn't count because it's Saturday and it's cheat day. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's horrible, but it's the same mindset.
It's so funny how these things in different contexts suddenly become acceptable or not. But
Yeah.
you're right. The concept is true. And I know there's some people out there listening or who maybe even turned this off already that would be like, well, I'm cheating on my diet. Duh. Like, obviously, that's what I'm cheating on. But why do you feel the need to quote unquote cheat on your diet? The behavior is just as problematic as you outlined with your analogy, right? If you are quote unquote cheating on your diet, you're not actually committed to your diet. You're not actually faithful.
Yeah. And it just means that your diet, and if you feel the need to cheat on your diet, it means that your diet is not sustainable. And if you feel the need to cheat on your partner, it means it's not the right partner for you, or you need to do the internal work to develop the mindsets that would make you a good partner. You're the problem.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that. I think that partner analogy is like, it's not always a them thing. It could be a you thing. And that's why you're cheating. It doesn't have to do with your partner. So if you think about it, like if we were to bring that same analogy forward to your diet and we're talking about cheating. Okay. If you're going to challenge me on this by saying you're cheating on your diet, then I'm going to say, okay, so what is it about your diet that makes it the right partner for you? And if you can give me a good reason, great. But if you can't because you need to cheat on it, then you got a problem with your diet strategy. Or if you say, you know what, actually, my diet strategy is great, but I still feel the need to cheat. Well, then you need to do that internal work. You need to go to therapy, aka hire a coach or spend some time building self-awareness to understand why you cannot be faithful to your nutrition/diet strategy. Mm-hmm. Either way, that's a huge problem with cheat days as a label because the cheating language is so problematic. But even if you're like, you know what, I'm not cheating on anything, I've accepted that, but I still like cheat days. The other problem with that language is, you said this, the guilt, the shame, the association that certain foods or certain ways of eating should invoke guilt or shame. Mm-hmm. And that is such a huge barrier to having a healthy mindset around food.
Yeah, it's just food, guys. It's just energy with more or less nutrients and more or less calories.
And more or less flavor.
And more or less flavor. Like, it's we don't need to feel guilty for eating food. Like, it doesn't serve us in any way. But I will say, if you do like the idea of having more food on some days, then you can do calculated refeeds or calculated high days, which we should put in as well.
You beat me to the next section, which was, what can you do instead of a cheat day?
Yeah. Refeed. Calculated, planned increase in food on a given day, let's say anywhere between like 2 to 4 days.
A week.
Consider that, or a week, up to a week, we'll call it.
No, sorry, like 2 to 4 days within a week / a full week.
Okay, yeah. I think once you get to week, then it's more of like a diet break, which is different. But let's say 2 to 4 days where you have a planned increase in calories, usually up to maintenance or even in a slight surplus, mostly coming from carbohydrates. And this has a few main benefits, mostly psychologically. And you can also be more flexible with food choices. You have more flexibility within your calorie budget to include foods that you like if you're, if you like more of those. And foods.
Still maintain like, hey, I'm still getting enough protein. I'm still eating my fruits and veg. I'm just now adding on a few more extra foods that allow me to play with that calorie space in a way that's more fun for me.
100%. And maybe this is timed with a certain social events, like I've boys trip this weekend or something, or I have a wedding this weekend and I need a bit more calorie budget. And by shooting for a higher calorie budget, instead of trying to diet through that, you're setting yourself up for success because you're still maintaining control. Mm-hmm. And because the target gives you the flexibility, but it's not going way overboard. Now we're not erasing progress. We're just pressing pause to have some fun and coming back after.
Or like I also, it is kind of like a pressing pause, and I'm using air quotes here, in the sense of like you're taking a slight exit from a calorie deficit, let's say, but it's not real. It's still contributing towards your forward momentum.
Yes.
Right? Because you're still adherent. It's intentional. those are purposeful calories too. And purpose in that sense could be like enjoyment, it could be relaxation, it could be stress reduction, it could be participation in key events, it could be enjoying certain foods. So like that's still purposeful. And that's a very, very different articulation than the free for all concept, because it's structured. There's a structure behind it. And because there is no label on that whatsoever that has anything to do with guilt, shame, cheating,
Yeah.
bad, quote unquote, etc.
Nothing. Exactly. And this is a whole different topic, but it teaches you how to eat. If you're in a fat loss phase, it teaches you how to eat when the diet is done or when you want to maintain your leanness, which people have a tough time with doing. So
That's
practicing
such
those
a good
things,
point.
it's like what would my level of flexibility look like, and how would my systems look for my life, and how should I be eating when I'm trying to maintain these
That's
goals?
such a good point. If like, yeah, it just came to mind for me as you were saying that. Like, if you're somebody who's using a cheat day based protocol, at some point, diets are not never meant to last forever. So let's say you now come out of that and you no longer have that like restriction the other days of the week. Because you've been stuck in this all or nothing binge restrict cycle, the only alternative you've learned is the binge. So it makes it very, very, very easy to be like, all right, well, I'm not dieting anymore. But now you're just binging all the time because you don't have a structured day that doesn't look like a cheat day.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
when you talk about having like intentional refeeds, which are eating at maintenance or slightly above, I'm just going to reiterate what you said because it resonated so much with me. You've learned how to eat like for maintenance, like a regular human being that doesn't have to be in a dieting cycle, but also doesn't have to be in a binging cycle.
Which I think is so underrated. There's, and this is a different topic, but like maintenance, it gets like ooh, scary for fitness people because we love making progress, but just because we're at maintenance doesn't mean our physique can't change, number one. And also sometimes in between phases, maintenance phases will set you up better for other phases. So
Absolutely.
learn these skills. So it doesn't have to be, yeah, I'm binging or I'm completely restricted and starving and hate what I'm eating. It's like, let's learn the middle ground. We need more
Absolutely.
middle ground in this industry.
I think we should do a whole podcast on the value of maintenance phases. I really think we should. So
For
stay
sure.
tuned for that one. But I think ultimately it's so critical to, can I just say, eat like a normal person? And I know there's no definition of normal, and I know that's a vast oversimplification, but just to eat steady, stable, all that, right? So, yeah, super, super important. Okay, so yeah, great discussion. I think in terms of the what to do instead, you talked about the value of refeed or having structured high days. There's two more things I just want to throw out as quickies before we wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
If you are somebody who's looking to break a binge restrict cycle or include what would typically be cheat day foods, quote unquote, into your regular routines, definitely listen to our previous episode on is your diet sustainable or is your diet unsustainable? Because we talk about this concept often known as the 80-20 rule. We think about it as the 80-20 guidelines, which shows you how you can integrate, let's say, more calorically dense foods or more indulgent foods. So definitely thinking about the 80-20 guidelines. And I think the other thing that's the easiest thing you can start to do is change your language.
Mm-hmm.
Stop using the cheat day language and start thinking about more productive ways of describing the potential binges that you have. Maybe you're calling them a binge, or understanding essentially what role they play for you or why some days you might be eating a certain way versus others. Just don't default to the like, okay, it's a cheat meal, therefore it's good. Like change
Yeah.
your language.
And if you're in a really in like having a tough time with the major binging restricting, then get a specialist who
Mm-hmm.
or a therapist who specialize in this kind of thing. As you said,
Absolutely.
that's not our wheelhouse
Mm-hmm.
to treat and or diagnose these types of situations. So yeah, important.
Thank you for saying that because binge and restrict cycles are a very serious form of disordered eating. You know, our goal with this episode is to highlight that there are problems with it, but a lot of the problems run deeper than we are qualified to cover. And so it definitely benefits from seeing a specialist if you are experiencing that. And I just have to say it, if you are working with a coach or any fitness professional who is advocating for binge and restrict cycles, is restricting your calories during the week and then giving you massive cheat meals or cheat days that are free for alls, please, please note that as a very serious red flag. Because nobody should have that experience of needing to go see an eating disorder professional after working with a fitness coach.
Yeah. And who knows? The younger me, that could have easily led down that track if you think about it. You know, I mean, I was probably like what 17. That could have easily led down that path. So these things are serious, and these things can stick with you for years if you don't figure them out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. And your long term health, because it is health,
Mm-hmm.
mental health and physical health, are not worth the short-term exchange of like just stepping on stage. So, and I know that might be a controversial take, but I do think you need to consider what kind of patterns are you currently falling into, who's creating those patterns, and if they're going to serve you long term. Okay, kind of a serious ending, but I think hopefully you now have identified, as we have, some of the problems with cheat days. If you think there's other problems or other things that encourage you to turn away from that strategy air quotes, protocol, please drop them below. We'd love to hear them. Cheat days are one of my biggest challenges that I feel like I run up against every time I open my social media feed. I can't change what other people talk about or what they do, but we can change the perspectives to anybody willing to listen. So we hope that you found value in this episode today. And we will be back in your feeds next Monday with another episode of Truth Talks. In the meantime, bye for now.
Take care.